All right, welcome back. Today we have Coach Derickson. He is the now offensive coordinator at Eastern Illinois University. Coach,
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for being here.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, you just got this job, I believe. You were the special teams. Now you're the boss.
Yes, sir. The old offensive coordinator got the head coaching job at a now rival school in our conference.
Yep.
So I had been with Coach Wilkerson prior to his arrival here at Eastern Illinois, and I had been his offensive coordinator at the University of Chicago. So now it's kind of right back in the same jobs we had when we were up at UC.
Yeah, one of a coach I work with, I think you might coach his brother. I work with Anthony Beltrano, and I think
Yep,
you coached his brother over there.
correct.
Because he told me, he's like, "Hey, did you see Coach Dickerson got the OC job at EIU?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." So I had to get on real quick because he knows I went to EIU. So I looked. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I'll be talking to him this week or something." And
A
he
lot
and
of old connections. I mean, through all the schools I've been at, and that's the best part about coaching is just all those guys calling back, and the congratulations texts I got from guys I coached 15 years ago.
yeah, yeah.
The invitations to the weddings. Man, what really made me feel old is last month I got I'm having a baby. One of those wedding shower deals, and I'm going, oh my goodness, the gray hair makes sense now.
Well, that's why I cut everything off, or it just falls out, so you can't see it no more.
EIU grad, smarter than me.
Well, and my wife likes shorter hair because when my hair gets longer, you do see it's like white right here. And because I'm older now, it's not going down, it's poofing out a little bit. And she's like, "You better get rid of it." So it
There
just
you
goes.
go. Hey, happy wife, happy life.
Yes. And then the beard, I do that. As soon as I see the white come in, I'm like, nope, and it gotta go. And I tell the kids if a new one comes in, I name it after them. I'm like, hey, you caused this one, you caused this one.
There you go.
And I give it names. I've been doing that since I went to EIU and then I coached for years at Charleston High School, and that's when I
Oh yeah.
started it. I started it that if I had my first white hair pop in, and I go, Tony, you caused this or something. And he was like, what? I was like, you see this white hair? And they're like, pull it out. I'm like, no, because then more are going to start popping up. Because I was like 25. I was an OC, 25 years old there. And I got
Yep.
that. And I was like, is this why? Because I'm an OC and this is popping up. And all the coaches were like, yeah, because you're in charge.
That's
I was like,
exactly right.
and especially when you think you know everything and you don't. That's the worst part is when you're younger.
Absolutely. Going back to the drawing board, having to learn a little bit more, and being humble enough to say, hey, I don't know everything, and
Right.
getting back and learning is yeah, it's a great experience. But
Yeah. Beltrano was like, I can't believe those two left University of Chicago when you guys all went down there last year. He's like, they've been there for so long. He didn't think you guys were ever going to leave. And I was like, yeah, but Wilkerson, he coached at EIU before, so there was a connection. And you are taking a step up from Division III to 1 AA, but you guys had it rolling at University of Chicago. That's like a big time Division III program.
yeah, Coach did a really good job when Coach Wilkerson first got there. I mean, it was right around 500, sub 500, and he did a really good job of just implementing a culture, where University of Chicago is a different, it's a different animal, very much probably like an Ivy League, where
Uh,
these guys have so much on their plate academically, and being able to handle the football, the game planning, and then their academics on top of that.
right.
And then they've got all these internships and career days and things they need to take part in, and interviews during the season that they're not like an interview that I did, coming out of college, where
Right.
I sat down and I was going to be a teacher, and I actually taught at Barrington High School for a few years, and
Uh-huh.
having a one-on-one with the department chair, and it's not like that. They're doing Zooms and they're meeting all these people and they're in suit and ties all day. I mean, it was a different process for those guys. A lot of fun.
Mhm.
The retention of the knowledge that those kids had, it was unbelievable. I could talk about something on day 3 of camp and not come back to it till maybe like week 6 in the season. And all of a sudden I'm going to be like, okay, you guys remember this? And it's like, yep, no problem. And I'm going,
Yeah.
how do you remember that stuff? How do you retain it? In my quarterback room, I had 2 quarterbacks playing chess without a board. They were just writing down the moves next to each other. And I mean, I didn't know what to do. I was kind of just baffled. And all right, guys, let's talk some football now, because this is way beyond me.
Yeah. You saying that I'm too stupid for that. That's not
Me
happening.
too.
I'm the O-line coach. I'm not doing that. No, no.
We
One
need
of
to
your
get
other,
your combo straight if you're the O line coach, making sure you're knowing where you're going. But chess is a different animal.
oh yeah, that stuff. You tried chest on the board and writing it down. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, give me my phone out. Let me get the rules back up. You know, O-line stuff. Oh yeah, I can tell you exactly what footwork here, 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 here. No, don't even.
Yep.
Well, same thing in school. I was horrible at math. Like, don't even try. When it comes to sports math, that was the funny thing. Me and math never got along. In the weight room, I could look at a weight and just be like, it's that much. And they're like, well, this is easy. And then they're like, stupid. Why don't you apply that to the math? And I'm like, oh, okay. But you're like 16 years old. You don't know any better.
No, absolutely. And that's why, going to get my master's was a blast. I mean, I got my master's in coaching education.
Mhm.
So when I had to take a master's class with statistics, it scared me to death.
Right.
But then I started thinking about, okay, what can I use that in terms of football? And then I started doing, my thesis on touchdowns and turnovers,
Yeah.
finding out that, touchdowns and turnovers, you get a +1 for a touchdown, -1 for a turnover. You guys gain a turnover, that's +1. If you're, I believe the end product was if you were +2 or higher, you won 92% of the football games you played in. If you were +1, 0, or -1, I think it was something that had to do with field goal percentage. The winner of the field goal percentage battle was going to win the football game, whatever it was, 95% of the time. But
Right.
it was just cool doing those statistics, and all of a sudden you can take something that's really tangible to the guys on the sideline and be like, okay, hey, we've scored 4 touchdowns this game as an offense. We've given up a turnover. We're +3. We're doing our job right now. You know what I
Right.
mean? The defense, can end up being -1, because for a defense to be plus in that system, that's tough.
Yeah.
So, you're going to expect them to be a little in the minus, but if they're -1, you're +3. Shoot, we got a 92% chance to win this game. Let's roll.
Right.
And the guys could figure that out. So when the guys on defense held the other team to a field goal, it was a win, because field goals don't equate into that. Hey, stop them from getting the touchdown.
Right.
And it became a battle won on the field, and we still got momentum going into the next drive.
Right. Yeah. See, all that math makes total sense. You put me in a classroom, you're just like, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't get it. But when it comes to sports, super easy.
No
Super
doubt.
easy. Another player that coach, one of your old players, Ambrose, running back that you guys had,
Yep, Nick DeAmbrose. Yep.
he volunteered for us this year as a running back coach, and he is going to go be a doctor or something. And so, like,
Correct.
it was like a 1 year deal, and he wasn't there every day. But I'm like, I can't be mad at you. You're trying to be a doctor. Can't be
Oh
We
yeah.
can't be mad mad about that.
Yeah, no, same deal with maybe missing a practice because he had a lab or something. You're going to be
Oh
mad
yeah,
about it. He's going to go make money. He's going to go open people up someday and fix them. I mean, it's it's pretty cool. And we actually had one of our players, lineman, go up and shadow at the office facility that he worked at.
uh,
So he mentioned Coach Wilk, he mentioned myself, and
yeah,
our player came back down. I was like, Nick was unbelievable. Like,
mhm.
you guys coached him? It was like, yeah. And not only did we coach him, he was an All-American.
Yep,
Was absolute stud.
yeah,
So if we were able to just get a hat on a hat, there was a lineman covering up somebody. He was able to find the hole and get vertical. And obviously, I'm assuming he did a pretty good job with you guys then.
yeah. This is not talking bad about him at all. He couldn't start till like right when football started, so part of the summer missed, which was fine. Like, he's a volunteer, he's outside the building, we all get it.
Right.
He had to learn very quickly. He was explaining things to me, and I'm like, "You're really smart. I understand it, but we're about to deal with high school kids, like." And so once he realized that their vision may not have been his vision, he got so much better as it went on, especially because he would go help the JV games and also help varsity. So both of those things helped him. So yeah, he did a great job. But I knew that first like week or two, I'm like, now I'm going to tell you who you have, because I was the run game guy. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to tell you what I want, and I'm about to tell you who you're going to deal with. So like their vision wasn't as good, so we had to go to pistol instead of sidecar stuff. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, they don't have the vision. Like, you're seeing it, you're understanding it. I said, but this sophomore in high school, this junior high school does not have your mindset. And then all of a sudden, then I just saw it. He was able to tweak things for them as a high schooler, and I was like, see, there it is. Like, he figured it out. Because I told him I've been coaching for 14 years. I was like, I had to figure that out a long time ago, because I can learn things from all you guys from a college perspective. I can go to high school and do exactly what you guys are doing, and my kids' heads will spin. Like,
Yeah.
how do I tail it to what they're doing? Because I mean, I have Division 1 players, but if they do go play college, I at least want it to be sort of college-esque so they're used to it. But man, some kids, they just can't do exactly what you guys are doing, and that's okay. But he figured it out. Super smart. He came to a JV game like his suit because he came right from something. I'm laughing. He's on the sideline like a suit
Right
coaching.
from the
Right, right.
office. Oh,
Oh
looking
yeah.
old school.
Oh yeah. He had like the coat on, the tie, the shoes. I'm just watching the JV game. I'm in sweatpants and a hoodie. I'm looking over and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go this way because he's all dressed for success. And it's a small
Oh,
world.
no, it is. It's a real small world. But that's also one of those things for young coaches. Like young coaches are coming right off the field a lot of times, and
Yep.
they have to figure out, okay, this is how I learned, this is how I did it. That's probably the biggest lesson for young coaches is how do I adapt this to the players that I have? Because some guys are going to learn visually. Some
Yep.
guys are more auditory. Some guys need to walk through it. You're going to put cones up and, for the running backs, trash cans and try to move them
Yep.
around. What are the different ways? And I know one way worked for you, but what are the different ways that you can get to work for all of your players?
Right.
Yeah, those young guys that can figure that out, tend to have some pretty good careers going down the path.
Yeah. Because we had this great running back, or it was a running back that played at Lombard West. They moved to Addison. He transferred in. We really had to work with him because he was super athletic, but he was almost too fast for his own good, if that makes sense, like getting there too quick.
Yep.
He also played at Lombard West, who runs that wing T-esque system. We're running a zone, so it was all that. So I think for Nick, it was like, well, why can't you see this? Because I can. And then we had to tell him, like, look at the system he came from. We have to tail this. That's why we're gonna go pistol. So maybe he's not, whatever. And then we had a sophomore running back that was a quarterback trying to figure it out. So now he's starting from the ground up. And I think he figured out very quickly, like, because we would have conversations about exactly how we should do things. And I said, that looks great, but do we have to throw something out, or do we do you realize what kind of lineman I have? Do you realize what kind of quarterback we might have? In high school, they're not as disciplined on defense. So it might look like they're lining up right, but they probably screwed it up. And, like it looks good. And so I think it was only a year deal for him. I don't know if he's going to come back next year, but for 1 year, it was great because he's from Addison, did good things,
Yep.
had nothing but good things to say about you guys, too. So it was just, he had a blast there, and I know he did great. So it was just a
Yeah.
small world. He knew you guys. Beltrano knows you guys. I think I knew somebody else that knew, and I was like, oh, I'm just surrounded by people that know everybody.
No, it's good connections. I mean, and when you can leave an impression, I mean, that's what we're in for,
Right.
trying to leave guys with a great impression and believe in something and hopefully they take something with them that you taught along the way.
So you said you started off coaching high school, like you were sitting there. I think you said that maybe at
Yeah.
Barrington.
Yeah,
Uh,
no. So Barrington High School was my first job out of college. When I was still in college, I finished my 4 years, and my fifth year, instead of going and I still had to do student teaching. So I couldn't graduate assistant because student teaching, I mean, it takes too much time.
mhm,
But I was in the Indianapolis area and did a fall with Ben Davis High School,
mhm,
who, at the time, Dick Dullahan, who did all the Bishop Dullahan camps back in the day. It was his final year before he retired. He was the head coach, and it was his last year, and to get a chance just to see an Indiana High School Hall of Fame head coach work and be in the inner workings of this monster of a program that had won a number of state titles was, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better situation. And
mhm.
teaching at a high school and then driving over there and coaching for the season, it really helped me catch the bug because I wasn't 100% certain and sold
Mhm.
on coaching, and then I was sold on coaching just then high school or college. And I went back to Barrington High School and coached there for about 4 seasons before I decided I wanted to kind of get involved with the college game.
Right.
Um, I had a blast. I enjoyed being in the classroom, but I taught high school history, which every student has to take. So you
Yep.
get, the students that want to be there and it's engaging. I taught AP economics. Students want to be there. It's engaging. But then you have those people who have to take it and, they got their phones underneath the desk looking down. And I just wanted to be in a classroom that everybody truly chose to and wanted to be in because I felt like I could develop a better relationship with the people in that classroom. And that's why I wanted to go to college football, because, in a college football classroom, the majority of guys, they want to be there. They're engaged. And I chose college instead of high school because, in high school, those kids go home to their parents.
Yep. Yep.
College, they've got me. And I love being the guy that they depend on and that they lean on and that they can call, if they need something. So,
Right.
they have parents, but their parents are further away, so
Yeah.
I love being that person for them. And, I've had a blast ever since, I jumped into the college game.
Yeah. I thought about the college game and I took the high school route, the long route, and now I'm 33. I'm like, nope, not doing it. I'm not doing the GA stuff. People have asked me and I'm like, it sounds cool, but no, like it's done, over, and that's totally fine.
No, there's something great about the stability and the consistency of high school, football, especially nowadays with the transfer portal, changing the game of college,
Yeah.
NIL, changing the game of college. It's becoming a much different game. And high school is still the same high school ball it is. There is obviously it changed a few years ago with, and I shouldn't say a few years ago, it was a long time ago with the private schools being able to recruit, but it's
Oh,
become consistent now. It's become consistent, and you guys deal with it every year, and in terms of guys going to the Pee Wee games and looking at eighth
oh,
graders and talking them into coming to their schools. But it's made it a little bit of a college game for you guys. But at the end of the day, too, you guys as high school coaches do a great job at your quote unquote everyday jobs, and then you have the fun of the high school atmosphere, and it's Friday Night Lights. Like there's something that everybody's going to look back on who played high school football and say there's nothing like the Friday Night Lights, nothing like the relationships I established back in high school and with my coaches. So yeah, I mean it's one of those things that in a lot of people and in most minds can't be beat. So those high school coaches, I mean, it's awesome. Still being football's football.
right.
It's just obviously you get a little faster when you get to college, and in some levels of college, guys are faster. And maybe you can do a few more things, but still ball.
Oh yeah. Uh, I don't know why I took the college or the high school route. Because I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what I was thinking back then? But because I started coaching right away, I like walked on at EIU, got my butt kicked, and I said, "This ain't for me." Coach Spoo was the coach.
Okay. Yep.
Their linemen were like still over 300 pounds because he ran that pro style type thing because they were big. This was 2009. I walk in at 275 and then they laughed. They were like, "You ain't big enough." And you walk on, you're paying to play. And all of a sudden it became where I didn't love football anymore. And I said, okay, this is when I knew it wasn't because of what they did. It was just mentally, I'll be honest, mentally couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
I just went to coaching and I've been doing since I was 19 years old and now I'm 33. High school varsity since I was 19 years old. And that's all I know. And I do all three sports. I do basketball and baseball. So I do all three. There's never a day off. There's never anything else. Um, and I had a buddy that GA'd at Eastern for 2 years, Northern, UTEP. And then for some reason, he's like, he stopped. He was like, I can't handle some of the shady stuff that goes on. I can't handle this, or this. So he coaches high school football or high school football in Texas. And I'm like, well, you still kind of won. You're doing high school football in Texas. You're probably
Yep.
making the same amount of money as you would at a Division II or something. Like you're still okay. Um, so you went to college. You met up with Coach Wilkerson at University of Chicago, got to Eastern. Wasn't any type of shell shock to go to Charleston, Illinois, because I know that place is not University of Chicago or any other place.
No, that's correct. But in my career path, I've been at a couple places that didn't have much around them. But truth be told, both my parents graduated from Eastern in the 70s.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd also, when I was at Barrington, I didn't only coach football, I coached track.
Okay.
And I had a couple all-state 4x4 teams and a couple all-state 400 runners and hurdlers. So
Yeah.
I had been down to Charleston before. Wasn't a shock or a surprise. I will say I don't live in Charleston
Okay.
because I have 3 children. They're all hockey players.
Uh-huh.
And the nearest hockey is going to be 45 minutes north of Champaign, which is where I live. So
Yeah.
Champaign was kind of the halfway point between hockey and football.
Right.
And I have an unbelievable wife who is extremely understanding about all of it. And, she just asked if I can make her life a little bit easier sometimes. And if I got to take a 45-minute drive to work every day to make her life easier, I'll do it.
Right. Yeah. No, you're not the only one. A lot of coaches live away from Charleston because I went to Oakwood, which is right by Danville and Champaign.
Yeah.
So for me, Charleston was bigger because my school had 300 kids. Then once you live in Charleston for a little bit, you go, oh, it's one road. There's a pizza place every 3 blocks. And it's not nice pizza, it's fast food pizza. But for some people, it's a culture shock to like go to Charleston. Like it's just, especially in the suburbs. Like when they
Oh,
go
yeah.
to Charleston, they're like, people park on their yard. There's country music blaring. Um, there's a party up there. Like they can't fathom that what Charleston is.
And that's part of the recruiting process. Like as soon as I talk to guys about coming here, I tell them exactly what they're going to see. Hey, you're going to hit some cornfields about an hour away from campus, and that's what's going on. But
Right.
as you know, going here, the cool thing about Charleston is, you're here with your boys, you're here
Yep.
with your academics, you're here with football, and this is a football community. When
Mhm.
Charleston High School's playing well, when EIU's playing well, this community comes out in numbers,
Yep.
and it is fun.
Yep.
Every I'm a Starbucks addict. Okay, so
Uh-huh.
every place I've gone, I go to the same Starbucks, whatever school I'm at. And I'll tell you what, this one they got to know me the quickest. I mean, it's just you have that community. Oh, coach, what's going on?
Yep.
Great win, but it's awesome. Just again, it's part of that community. Yes, it's small and we're kind of secluded. Coach Wilkerson affectionately refers to Charleston and Mattoon as the Twin Cities. So down here in the Twin Cities,
Yeah.
there's everything you need to be, a great college student, a great football player. There's that community, that people can come here, spend 4 or 5 years, and get out and be successful.
Mhm.
We've got the NFL guys,
Yep.
that have been successful. We've got some people that have done businesses,
Yep.
been successful. Shoot, Jimmy John's. I mean,
Oh
sub
yeah.
shop #1 across the street.
Yep.
People have come here and had great careers. So it is a culture shock to some people that are used to the suburbs. But for those people, I challenge them. It's good to get away.
Yeah.
And be in a different environment and be in a little bit more of a secluded community for your college experience because, that can be the best experience you're going to have. Now, you may
Right.
not want to live here when you leave, but you're going to leave this place going, I love the people there. I love my experience. And you're going to go on and be successful. So
Yeah. The campus is not too big. If it's everything's right there, and like you said, you're going to remember people from your class. You might be walking around and like, oh yeah, we had that class together, and you remember people. You go to nothing wrong with bigger colleges, obviously, but some don't get all of that. So that's a great recruiting tick of like you're going to make friends. Plenty of people on Lincoln went to Eastern, have businesses all through there. When I was coaching there, like you said, coaching even just high school ball, I walk through Walmart and you see people like, oh, you're well, it depends if we won or not. If we lost, you're the OC that called those plays, and you're like, yeah, and then you do this, but like they know, like at least they know. Uh,
yeah.
the Mattoon Charleston games at EIU are packed, like they are sold out. Um, and the tailgating is awesome because like you said it's a small town feel with a bigger environment, if that makes sense. Like
Yep.
Charleston's what, 20,000 people, so it's not too small, but it's has a small town feel to it. So and it's bigger than people think, like all the farming and where the people live. And I went to college with people that got jobs at like the high schools and stuff. Like they don't, some have not left, they went down there and just never left. They're
Yeah.
like, I lived in the suburbs my whole life. I got my education degree. Now I could be an assistant principal here and make decent money, and the taxes aren't too high, and the houses like, oh, I'll live around here in Mattoon or Tuscola or around there. And I I liked EIU. Like it wasn't like my wife liked it. She went down there. She went to York. She went down there. She said her first week she was like, "Oh my God, where am I?" Because she went to York. Well, then she loved living down there. Now she never lived there again, like you said, but she's like, I loved it because it was a change.
Yeah.
Now for me living in Oakwood, I was like, it's just a bigger version. Like to me, it was fine. Cornfields, whatever. These country lane roads. Oh, that freaked her out. What do you mean it's just this little road with no line? I'm like, it's called a country road. You just go. um, but you are right. If both teams are winning, that town loves it. And this year you guys had a great season. Should have made the playoffs. I saw that and I go, oh my God. There's not much more you could have done, really. But I
Yep.
mean, you guys got it kind of turned around. What was the process like to kind of get that turned around so quick? Because it's your second year, like it went quick.
Yeah, when Coach Wilkerson got here, and one of the things that I love about Coach Wilkerson, one of the things that drew me to U Chicago was the mandate he has for the coaches, and his philosophy is we are going to coach our players like they're our sons and daughters.
Hmm.
That's how we're going to treat them. Luckily, I get after my sons and daughters plenty,
Right.
so the guys were ready for it. But it was a family atmosphere. And that first spring when we arrived, February wasn't about X's and O's and them learning our offense. It wasn't about the March wasn't until we got to spring ball. It wasn't about X's and O's and learning the defense. It was about having conversations and learning about each other. What do they want to be? What makes them tick? Learning about us, where we come from, what's my family like, and it was us getting to know the guys. And I think that was huge because there's a bunch of different cliches that talk about, nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care, all those different things. But that was 100% true when we got here.
Right.
And we got to know the guys got to know us, and the bond that we created was pretty strong. That first May, we did a lot of recruiting in terms of some transfers and bringing in some guys to try to help us out immediately. And it wasn't just about bringing in the best football players. There are great football players everywhere. You have to bring in the right guys that are not only great football players, but they fit, the character of each room or the character of the coach in each room. And we brought in some guys that really did fit the mold that we wanted to build in each of our individual rooms, and then as an offense, a defense, special teams, and then as a team. And we found the right guys.
Hmm.
Granted, that first season wasn't great. We only won 2 games, but we were in almost every game. The last game of the season, we're playing a UT Martin team that if they beat us, they tie for the conference title, and they were 20 something in the country. Well, we took them down to the very last minute, took them down to the wire. And I think that was the springboard into the offseason
Right.
because now it was okay. Yeah, we had only won one game the previous couple seasons. We doubled that win total, too. But, you know, it was a big step in terms of every game was tight. And the last game of the season, when we had, I think, on the offense at least, I believe we only had one guy or two guys that had started game one that ended up finishing game 11 because of injuries and different things.
Right.
So, we got through that part. And then into the offseason, again, it was recruiting. We ended up bringing a great mid-year class, not only of incoming freshmen, but of a couple transfers because you have some guys leave.
Right.
That I appreciate the guys who were here with us that first season that gave our coaching staff an opportunity and then decided, you know what, I want to try something different, and they jumped in the portal. We grabbed some guys out of the portal. There's that misconception that the portal's hurting high school recruiting. Not for us, at least. We're still going to go out and get the same amount of high school guys we would year in and year out with graduation. But when we have a junior leave, we're going to try to bring in a junior to fit it. And that junior can
Right.
leave now because of the portal. So we're going to use a portal kid to fit it. And that's what we ended up doing. Brought in some, pretty productive players this past season, and then did the same thing with those guys. Learned about them,
Right.
but we did a little bit more X's and O's in
Uh-huh.
terms of the off season because we had done the get to know you process, the off season before. So
Right.
we're hammering now a little bit more of the X's and O's. The guys know where we come from. We hit the next recruiting cycle. We're out on the road again, talking to our players and re-recruiting our players because we don't want them going in the portal after the spring because we feel like we got a good unit. Guys are not jumping in the portal because they feel like we've got a strong base of character on our team, and they busted each other in the summer. They
Right.
pushed each other hard. We got into August, and it was like, man, we're a pretty good team.
Right.
And we're not just strong from a weight standpoint, we're strong from a character and a bonding standpoint. So when we hit camp, it was a blast,
Yeah.
and we came out of camp guns blazing and had that first game where we're getting ready to get on the bus, and we've got 3 buses ready to roll to Terre Haute, and bus number 3 backs over 2 handicap parking signs, and the
Oh.
signs rip the bottom of the bus open to where the oil's spilling out.
Oh.
So we hit adversity. It's awesome. We're not even in a game yet, and we're hitting adversity. So all the guys pile on the 2 buses together because we tried to call for a new one's not going to get there. All right, we got to go to Terre Haute. Guys pile on, and instead of having their own seat, linemen are sitting next to each other, and it's like, we're not going to let this beat us.
Right.
We get to Terre Haute, we get off the bus, and you'd have thought everybody had their own bus, to themselves the whole time. The way they came out and just rocked, the opponent on the field, and all of a sudden that was kind of the start. And we didn't let Bowling Green set us back. Bowling Green, tough FBS team in the MAC. The guys could have had the win, but then backed off. But it was like, man, we can play with these guys. And had a good game. And then, we had the rival then. The old Illinois State came down, and it was a barn burner, beat them by 1. And then we had a couple more games where we won by a field goal, or we weren't playing very well, but we had to overcome it. And the guys learned how to win on the fly.
Yep.
And it was because they stuck together, again, because I think a lot of it was the right guys were together, and they bonded together. They learned about each other. We obviously had some talent too. Our quarterback was extremely talented this past season, and that helped. With the offense, we had some really talented players around him and talented defense. But everybody got along.
Right.
And I think that can be understated. You want to go out and you want to get the best players, but the best players aren't necessarily the ones with the most athleticism or the strongest.
Right.
The best players are guys who maybe you give a little on athleticism for a guy who's a fit for your room, who's not going to be a bad apple in the bunch. Maybe you give a little on strength because you see something in that guy that he's going to fit well with, especially, this being the offensive line coach. If the offensive line doesn't gel, you're in trouble. You could have the 5 best high school dudes in the country, but if they don't communicate and they can't work together, you might as well be, the worst team in the country. If that's the case, you got the 5 best guys. So Coach Wilkerson did a really good job of really molding this team together, bringing them together from a person standpoint.
Right.
This having been in Charleston, people leave EIU saying, man, that place was awesome. And the thing I miss most are the people. Realistically, that's the football team that he developed, was a team about the people.
Yep. That, me and the head coach at Charleston, not the one that's there now, the one previous, we did not get along, and that's why we left. But there are people down there that I left saying that. I said, there are good people down there, from professors that I had, from the business owners, to the people that I coached with that, stayed down there and did things or whatever it was, or they're from Charleston. I'm like, there are good people down there, and love my time there. So that's awesome to hear, because EIU thrives off exactly what you're talking about. When EIU is good at sports, that's actually every sport, they thrive on that. When they're not good, no offense to anybody else, there is a little disconnect, if that makes sense. Like when Dino Babers got there, like, no offense to Coach Spoo at all. Jimmy G was there for 2 years. I helped out spring ball. Babers got there junior year. I helped out spring ball. And it was just like all of a sudden the glue went together. Don't know how, it just did. And what did they do? They went to the playoffs. They won the conference. And then things started to fall apart a little bit with all the sports. But it was just, yeah, exactly what you said. When it's together, and even Charleston High School, when it's together, they all do well. And, when I talked to Coach Wilkerson on here last year, that's kind of the things he was saying, because he got there so late, was I don't even have to worry about X's and O's. I'm more worried about like just getting the team together. And then one of your GAs was Cole Hoover, who I coached at Charleston. I coached him. And then my buddy coached Bryce. He's an offensive lineman from Westville there. He coached him. And so it was just a very small world, but I tried, like, it was just awesome. Like, all the stories that he was trying to put or like how he's going to build it. And he's like, I'm coming from the Division 3 level of like, you have to love football to play Division 3. So I'm bringing that to Eastern. Like, you have to love football. We're all going to love it. We're all going to be here, and it's just awesome. And then you guys did it this year. Like, you won a lot of games, so it kind of worked. Or there's
Yeah.
something behind it.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was definitely a love for the game, that we had with our guys. And not just the game, but the grind. Like, football's a grind. You play less games than pretty much every other sport, in the NCAA.
Yep.
And you got to love putting in the work in practice. And if you don't love practice, games are going to be they're going to be a bear.
Mhm.
And we just found the right guys that, because sometimes you can have a guy who loves practice with one group, but you put him in another group and it's going to be like a job. Our guys, found it every day to come out, hanging out, BSing and high fiving and joking. And coach created a great atmosphere that our guys were able to do that. And they had fun out there. Now, when it was time to get down to business, guys were getting down to business. Illinois State Week, everybody will tell you it was a little tighter, but the fun was still there.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm was still there. So guys just knew, okay, we
Yeah.
we can't be too much high fiving right now and too much dancing after I catch a touchdown. We got to get back to work and we got to do it
Right.
again.
Right. Um, to pivot a little bit, you made a
Mm-hmm.
comment about like people talk about the transfer portals ruining high school recruiting. I talked to a coach who coaches Division 2 a couple days ago, and he goes, I hate hearing high school coaches say that. And I said, well, it's funny you say that because that's all we talk about is what we're seeing. And that's why I tell people I don't listen to ESPN all the time. I like to have conversations about what is really happening. He said, what has happened is maybe this kid would be Division 1 of like Illinois, Alabama, whatever. But because of the transfer portal, maybe that kid is now Eastern Illinois caliber. Like he's still going to go play college ball, but he's won AA now instead of maybe Division 1. He goes, but outside of that, he goes, I still recruit the same amount of high school that I do. And so, do you hear that a lot? Like high school, more than anything, I said maybe the COVID year would hurt for a year because people are staying longer, but now we're getting out of that a little bit. And so, but do you hear that a lot? Like, oh, this is going to ruin high school recruiting. Like, I don't see that, but we all said it. We just all, we assumed that that was what was going to happen.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not so much the portal that hurt high school recruiting, although the portal opened up the same time as what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
I think everybody getting the extra COVID year, the NCAA didn't expand rosters, so the extra COVID year, all of a sudden guys have an extra year, so they'd be taking less high school guys as a result.
Okay.
There are still COVID guys sitting around. I mean, I think we're going to have the COVID guys until the 25 classes or the 25 seasons done and over with. Because with 20 not counting, then you've got 5 years, with a guy having a red shirt. It's still going to take some time. And I think, again, the portal opened the same time. There was just that correlation with the portal and the COVID
Mhm.
that's what cut some numbers.
Right.
Wasn't necessarily, the portal itself. And I think there's probably a good point by your buddy at the D2 where a guy might go FCS instead of Power Five. And I will say this: I think some of the Power Fives, maybe instead of taking a high school guy, are going to take an FCS All American,
Yes. Yep.
as a sophomore,
Yep.
to fit that hole that they have. I think that's a valid point, and therefore there's an extra hole in the FCS level.
Mhm.
But there is a little bit of that, but I do think it's more so, as you said, the COVID piece with
Mhm.
everybody getting the extra year, and those guys still not having cycled out as of yet.
Right. Well, of course, what do us high school coaches do? We talk about things and whatever. We said it's also because of COVID, but also because they're making money now. So why would they leave? Like, if you could still play college ball and make money, why would you leave? And think about it from that perspective. I was 22 years old making money playing college football. Wow, no matter how much it is, it could be $50,000. I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to school for free if I'm a scholarship player and I'm making money. Yeah, I'll stay. Like why would I go work? Like why would I go
Yeah.
do that? So I knew that all affected a little bit. And I know from talking to Coach Wilkerson last year, I don't know if it's changed as much. you guys dealing with name, image, and likeness? Has that grown a lot there at Eastern, or is it not?
No, it's pretty minimal still.
Yeah,
And I think in a lot of FCS programs, or the majority of FCS programs, it probably is minimal. You'll see it more obviously huge at the Power Fives.
right,
When you get to that level, if you don't have the money, you're going to be in trouble and you're going to be at a disadvantage. You know, Chip Kelly, said it the best a few days ago. Just in terms of there needs to be two different conferences or divisions where you have all of those Power Five NIL, huge money teams, and then you need to have the other teams down there, in a separate bracket to separate it. And football needs to be different than the other sports in college sports,
right,
because it's a different animal. It's a different money maker.
right.
And there is more money going there and basketball than there is anything else. But yet, when the guys go into the NCAA eligibility center, they're filling out the same questions that somebody in the Northeast who's in the rowing team is filling out, and it's just different.
Right.
You can't. I don't think they can all fit under the same umbrella when
No.
football is literally a 6'7", 300-pound guy, and the other sports are looking at 6 foot, 160-pound people.
Right. Well, especially because of Chip Kelly, they're going to the Big Ten, and he said, "What we have to go play a Big Ten school, but then our softball team is going to Rutgers. They should go play in Arizona or something." Or like, I feel bad for all the other sports. Like, it was cool to see. Oh, they're in the Big Ten. Awesome. Because I'm a U of I guy. Awesome. And then I thought about it again. I'm like, well, wait a minute though. Basketball's got to travel. Softball's got to travel. Baseball's got to travel. The swimming team's got to travel. Like, wow. Like, and I love football, but all the decisions were made on football. Like you said, every decision is made because, well, who makes the most money?
Right.
Football, football, and
Well,
basketball.
and it goes also to how many games does football play? Like, you're not going to play everybody in the Big Ten.
Right,
You're only going to play a certain amount of teams. So it doesn't make any sense if the softball girls are all going to have to play everybody in the Big Ten. They're going to have to be doing all the traveling when football's not even doing all that much traveling.
right.
They've got a home and away. It's not, they're going to have to go to a couple of away schools, but they're going to bring some of those schools home. And, there's only a handful, about 12 opportunities. 13 if you make the championship. It's a different animal. But
Right.
yeah, they're governing everybody under the same umbrella. Basketball, they might have the money to do it. I think what eventually is going to happen with a lot of these conferences is, if they're smart, they're going to do it like back in COVID, where they had the bubble, and you bring everybody in for a weekend or a week. You put them in a bubble, and they all play each other, so that you're not having to do all these, paying for travel over and over and over. You find one site, you play a bunch of games, you get your conference games out, and then you go back home, and then you can play some of the local conference games, instead of having to travel all the way out to Rutgers from UCLA.
But then they're also student athletes. So it's like, how do you balance like class? People said that. And I'm like, well, let's be careful how we say student athlete. But I'm like, softball and baseball, like, really? They got to leave and go to Penn State or wherever and try to get back and do schoolwork on top of that to keep up their scholarship and their GPA. Like, are you kidding me? Like, some professors aren't going to let that slide. We've seen that before. Like, I'm not giving them an extension on the Duke professor. Like, oh, that's cool, you won, but I'm not giving you an extension on this paper or something. Like,
Yep. Well, and that name's going to have to change. I mean, with all these kids making all this money, it's not just student athlete. Now you're a student athlete and entrepreneur. Like, there needs
yeah,
to be another word tagged on to these guys, because it's not just student athlete anymore. With the money coming in and the fact that people are choosing, which I'm all for, choosing to stay at
hmm,
school. All
yep,
right. But choosing to stay at school because you're making more than you would have made had you gone and been a professional, that's getting out of hand. So yeah, call them a student athlete entrepreneur, but
hmm.
they're not a student athlete anymore.
My buddy said this the other day. He goes, Steve, think about this. They're making this money as a college student. Wait till they have to pay taxes on this as income. And I was like, oh, I don't even understand taxes yet. And an adult. And he goes, exactly. Are they now it's on the football coaches to show them taxes. And I'm like, that's just another job that they have to do or figure out.
It'll be a new class they come up with. It'll be the student athlete, finance class,
Right.
where they're making all this money, so they're going to have to bring in a professor or pay the finance teacher already to take it to do an extra class just for student athletes. to deal with all the money that's coming in that they have to pay off
Yeah.
taxes and everything else on.
Yeah. Or like invest it. If they're going to go invest the money, if they make enough, I mean, if you're Alabama's of the world and all that, you're going to invest it. How do you do that? I don't know. Like, don't ask me. I'm the dumb line coach. Don't ask me how it works. I don't understand any of it. And then with name image, with name image and likeness at Eastern, like you guys like to obviously look at the transfer portal. Has it been a huge thing for Eastern since you've been there? Like with like obviously you said you guys aren't losing kids, but how often do you look at it? Do you always have to be looking at it? Is it always like every single day we're looking and figuring it out?
So at this point, I think every school has to buy some sort of a service, that helps with the transfer portal.
Right.
And as a result, you have that service, and yeah, you update it every day. You look at it. I think too, one of the things that when Coach Wilkerson was here in the '90s, that they were really good at was finding the right junior college guys.
Yep.
And making sure that we're still not neglecting the junior college athletes, that can come in and help us as well. So I think we've done a good job of finding a little mixture of junior college athletes along with transfer portal guys. This year we didn't lose too many. We lost more the prior year, but we didn't lose too many this year. But you've always got to be, checking it out, looking, trying to better your team, and find guys again that are right for EIU, right for Charleston. And then obviously that fit what you're looking for on your roster. So yeah, we're constantly looking at the portal and trying to turn over stones and see what guys work. But I think another piece of the portal is, everybody's a little bit different. Every coach individually is a little bit different.
Right.
Me personally, I like looking when I'm looking at the portal for guys coming up. By that I mean a Division II All-Conference All-American, a Division III All-American. One of our second team All-Conference guys this past year was a D3 All-American, who had a chip on his shoulder. He wanted to prove he could play Division I ball. And ironically enough, when I was at Western Michigan in 2017, we offered him a PWO at our camp, but not a scholarship. When we were here, we offered him a scholarship. He took it, and proved he could play at this level.
Right.
Those are the guys that I think fit what we want, because one of Coach Wilkerson's, philosophies or talking points with our guys is, look, guys, we get, especially now, we're 8-3, we don't make the playoffs. We got a giant chip on our shoulder.
Right.
Finding guys that fit that mold, that may have been overlooked because they were an inch or two too short, or in high school, their 40 wasn't fast enough, or they weren't strong enough coming out of high school, or maybe they played at a small school and the only team that was looking at them was a Division III or Division II program. Looking for those guys who have the chip on the shoulder, like, okay, I proved it here,
Right.
now let me come there and I want to prove it again.
Right.
That's, I guess, what I kind of try to look for in the transfer portal.
It's always that's all like you're going to find that diamond in the rough type of thing, and that's what Eastern is. Eastern, when I was there, was this kid came from a junior college. Maybe he went to Millikan, and now he's here. Like Eastern, it seems like you guys are still building foundation of like what Eastern was or is that
Well,
culture thing and all that.
yeah. Well, and you're right. It's you can say was, because it is way different back then,
Oh yeah.
not just Eastern, but the whole environment of the NCAA to what it is now. But we're
Right.
still finding that same niche now in the new NCAA environment, for what they used to do. Like Tony,
Mhm.
Tony didn't have an offer anywhere else. I think he was going to go to a UW Division III school until Eastern found him diamond in the rough, up in Wisconsin.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden he becomes Tony Romo, the Cowboys quarterback, the guy who, can predict the score on NFL on Sundays,
Right.
And Jimmy, Jimmy didn't have a bunch of offers,
No. No.
EIU went up and offered him a little bit more than somebody else, and he came down here and lit it up. Now the question, is with the legacy of Jimmy and Tony, we talk about it all the time. How will we be able to get a guy like that to stay at Eastern, for 4 years in today's climate?
Right.
And I hope we have that problem coming up, because that means we've got some pretty good players,
Right.
that are here. But we're still looking for those, those diamonds in the rough, those guys who maybe have been overlooked that fit what we want to do and what we do as a culture.
And then I also said this to somebody. if you're still bringing high school kids in, which a lot of people are, and you have these older guys that are still being brought in, you're setting yourself up because maybe you redshirt them, they get bigger and stronger. Maybe they would be ready to play in a normal world, but if you bring someone from the transfer portal, they're now getting bigger, stronger. If they're bought in and they're going to stay and they're going to start and they can learn from those guys, you're setting yourself up. So, like, because I know the old school way, build it from high school, build it from junior college, and it's going to be good. Now it has to be good now. But if you could somehow find that balance, teams are usually going to be pretty good now, the way the new world is with the transfer portal and all that stuff. Like, if you can do that, you'll be pretty good because
Yeah.
it's just mixed together.
Well, and I think, when you say build it from high school, what that means is those guys have been in your culture for 2, 3, 4 years.
Yep.
And when those other guys come in, all of a sudden it's like, no, this is how we do things. It's not a learning process. It is, this is how we're going to go about it. This is how you conform. And going back to, how it got built so quickly, we tried to do that immediately with not obviously the high school kids we brought in, but with everybody. And trying to assimilate them to, hey, this is the family atmosphere that we're going to build. We don't have 4 years to do it with you guys because you guys aren't freshmen. We have, 6 to 9 months before we get this next season rolling that we're going to do it.
Right.
And then throughout the season, they saw us. We didn't change. We were consistent. Just because we got down in the game, we didn't change from when we were up in the game, and them seeing that from us as the examples, it just, I don't know, trickle down effect to everybody in the program. So when we brought in new players, that next winter and tried to assimilate them during the winter and the off season, the culture was set.
Right.
So coach did a really good job with just getting everybody on board fast instead of taking a kid for 4 years and all of a sudden that kid can now teach everybody else.
Right. Because I was say it was done fast. Like this year when you saw it, like I didn't watch every game, but you could tell from last year to this year. I was like, that was pretty quick. And talking to you, you kind of have to be, I guess, and now like in today's world, because how do you another pressure for you guys? How do you keep kids here? Like you're not going to go overboard. Like if you're going to go, the old school mentality, if you're going to go, you're going to go.
Yes.
But you still have to figure out how do we keep these kids. And I listen to Coach Bielema talk about like he'll have an adult conversation with some guys at U of I. If they're going to go, he'll have a conversation with them. If they decide to go, they go. But you still have to try to keep them around. And I feel bad for college coaches sometimes. It just keeps adding more and more to your guys' plate and like more pressures and everything else. And I'm like, people talk about, oh, they make all this money. And I'm like, I don't even care. The way it's changed on you guys, I respect you guys because it just keeps adding on and on. And I'm like, I had to keep up. I couldn't imagine continue to keep up. But it seemed like from Eastern's perspective, you guys had a positive attitude about it and say, well, it's changed. We're just going to go with it.
Yeah.
Have to.
You have to, and it's like a football game. The official calls something. Well, what are you going to do? You can sit there and yell about it, but it ain't going to help. He's not going to change the call.
Right.
You just got to roll with it. So, I think that's what we had to do, and that's what we did. And yeah, I mean, you have some guys that believe that they can, maybe play at a higher level, and they want to experience that. You hope that the relationships you've established, you can have, as you said, like Coach Bielema, establish some adult conversations and have some adult conversations with those guys. And realistically, if you have a great relationship with them, it's going to be, hey, okay, I see what you're saying. You might be ready for that next level. Or, hey, I don't think you're going to go and get what you want,
Right.
and having those open conversations with those guys, which I love the NCAA and how they put the dead period right after Thanksgiving weekend, because that allows you to have those one-on-one conversations with everybody in the program.
Right.
That's what we do here. Every coach has a one-on-one with every player in his position, and then Coach Wilk has a one-on-one with every player in the program, to establish here's where we see you. What is it that you want to do? And he asked the question point blank, to the guys like, are you leaving? Because when you have a good open relationship and a strong relationship, you can ask blunt questions, and get truthful answers.
Right.
We didn't have a guy that said, "Oh, coach, I'm staying," and then go and put his name, in the portal with compliance, which I'm sure you have at places.
Right.
We have great relationships, and you just hope that as your relationships develop with these guys, that there's at least a trust factor in here. I'm telling you exactly what I see. I'm telling you exactly what I believe. And if he wants to have that conversation of, well, coach, what do you think? I'm gonna give him a straight answer. You know,
Right.
and there were some guys who took our answers or took our advice and stayed. Some guys that took our advice and still left. And some guys who took advice and left. It just it depends on the individual, and
Mm.
we can't be blind to the fact that there's other people in their ear,
Right.
um,
Right.
and we don't control that. Just like you don't control a call on the field. So
Mhm.
control the controllables, and we're going to keep doing what we believe is the right thing to do for these guys day in and day out, and let the kind of the chips fall around us.
Oh, same thing here. We know there's parents in our kids' ears. We know there's mom or grandma, grandpa, brother, sister, blah, 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 blah. And we hear it in the stands. Don't, what kind of stupid call was that? And you're like, yeah, whatever. Uh, but then as long as if you could tell they're buying into what we're saying, we're like, we're okay. And that's kind of what happened at Addison. We made the playoffs this year, first time since 2014. It was awesome. We won our playoff win. Our OC went to Addison. He goes, guys, I think this was the first road playoff win since 97 when I was a senior in high school. And we were like, oh my God, really? He's like, yeah, first road playoff win since they went to the state title game that year. He goes, that took, and we were like, oh my God. But it was kind of the same thing. It was a culture because I got there during COVID summer because I said, COVID can't last as long as we think it is. And I took the job like an idiot. And well, let's get to the spring and whatever. But it finally got built up to this point where we didn't quit. The way you're describing Eastern was kind of like us. Last year, if we got down in a game by 10 points, our kids would have quit, like most of them, like, oh, no point in playing hard. This year, there was 3 times where a team scored on us like this. And then all of a sudden it was, oh, we're up 21-7 now. That's awesome. Like we didn't quit or it tied it up or whatever it was. So the culture part, I don't even know if that's the right word anymore. It's a buzzword, but it's the same thing. If you have that relationship, they don't leave, they don't go do anywhere. We're battling private schools right now coming into our field to recruit kids, but we it's same thing. So it's awesome to hear that, and then awesome that we're doing the same thing. Because like I said, if they trust you, they'll just do whatever you ask them. And you could go up to a kid and high school's a little different. Oh, I broke up with my girlfriend, and they'll come talk to you about it. And you're like, let me hear about it. Or like, mom and dad grounded me for what? Well, I egged a house. Well, dumbass, don't egg a house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you made the right decision sometimes going to college, not dealing with that.
Well, you got to be if you, in this job now, you got to be ready to pick up the boxes and move. If the things don't go the right way, or things do go the right way.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother animal in itself.
Oh yeah.
Trying to find the right hockey program, for for the kids and the right place to live. But no, there's goods and bads of both of them. I mean, at the end of the day, a good coach is going to be consistent. He's going to
Yeah.
be consistent with his relationships. He's going to be consistent whether the team's winning, whether the team's losing, or you're tied.
Mhm.
I mean, if you saw, we had a couple overtime games this year.
Yep. Yep.
Both of them. First overtime they got the ball, they went down, scored, kicked the extra point. We went down, scored, we went for two, we missed. And
Mhm.
essentially we get that. We're conference champs this year, and we're in the
Right.
playoffs. And then 2 games later, same deal. We go to overtime, they get the ball, they score, we get the ball, we score, we go for two, and we get it.
Right.
And our staff, our players were just consistent about everything we did. And the consistency, I think is really part of what won, and turned this program around.
Right.
Coaches at the high school level, or coaches at the pro level, coaches at the middle school level, if you're consistent and your players see that, there's a lot. It's a lot easier to trust you,
Mhm.
and to trust what you're saying and what you are trying to help them believe in. If you can be consistent.
Yeah. And I'm the consistent guy that is a jerk slash jokes around a lot. Like if in my O-line meeting rooms, if somebody recorded those, it would be, I don't know if I'd be fired, but I might be brought in and be like, really? Like, man, you're as high as Snoop Dogg right now. What are you doing here? Or like, hey, when you see, I was like, guys, you know what a buffet is? They're not around as much due to COVID, but can you run like you're running to a buffet to eat that? Or I would just, or I might rewind it a couple times. I'd be like, were you thinking about your girlfriend here? Were you thinking about like, I'm just outrageous. And that's the clean version. Not even, but the thing is, then we go out to the field and they'll joke with me. They'll be like, hey, your hairline there, Coach Steve. And I'll be like, what? Come on, man. But that was it. It was this back and forth. It was if another coach tried that with them on staff, they would look at him, be like, who's this guy? Like it
Yeah.
has to be me that does that. But I did it with the whole team. Like it wasn't just O-line, it was like running backs, quarterback. I could go do whatever. And that's the plus side of coaching multiple sports is I can get those kids, do that. And then sometimes off the sideline, the quarterback might come talk to me and I'm the O-line coach. They might come talk to me and I'm like, hey, you're gonna get me in trouble. Go to the OC. I get it, but go over here. But every position coach figured that out. And I think I might have started that because of how outrageous I am and like how boast I am. But then other position coaches started joking with their thing. And I'm like, hopefully they're seeing me do that. And now they're like, oh, I could be goofy. I could be myself and do those things. And then that fed into the kids because now they're doing it. And I think that I like to say that's part of why we finally broke through and made the playoffs in Illinois. Like I think that's part of it is it finally just like you said, it glued together, boom, done. I
Well,
mean,
those relationships, and you talk about those. That's probably the thing I'm going to miss most about being the special teams coordinator. You dealt with everybody on the team. That
uh-huh.
was the coolest part. Being the offensive coordinator now, I'm strictly with the offense, and I know some of those defensive guys still, but if I'm blessed enough to be in this role in 4 years, and all those defensive guys that I had coached on special teams cycle out, I'm not going to have those relationships like you were talking with all the different players on,
Yeah.
on both sides of the ball. Like that was the greatest part about being the special teams coordinator is having those relationships all over the place and
Yeah.
being able to joke with guys. Now, I also watched myself a little bit more like, I was also a receivers coach. So, one of the DBs is holding the receiver, I wasn't getting all over him because I knew I needed him to run down on punt in the next period during practice.
Right, right.
But yeah, having those relationships across the team is pretty special,
Right.
definitely something I'm going to miss in my new role.
Yeah, but now you're the boss. Now you're the boss man. Now you get to make calls. Now you can either get a Starbucks bought for you or you got to buy it yourself. And that's what's going to happen.
Very true. I did have one of the locals buy me a cup of coffee after we fake punted on Bowling Green and got it for 20 yards. So, made the right call on that one.
Well, and I'm friends with the guy that owns Panther Liquor, so I'm just saying
Okay.
he 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 coached. I coached with him at Charleston High School, and
Oh, there
so
you go.
if you need some connections, I know some people.
We'll talk after the podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on here. Great
Yes,
stuff.
sir.
Big fan, obviously, still of EIU. Like what you guys are doing. Coach Wilkerson invited me down, and it's just driving from the suburbs is too much. So I got to get back down there at some point. But when you go to college there and live there for so long, you leave. You're like, oh, do I go back or hang around college kids again? But I
Well,
appreciate.
hopefully this March and April, when we have one of these Saturday practices for spring ball, you're able to make it down and it doesn't get too much into your schedule. And I know you coach multiple sports, but maybe making it down for one of those would be good. Be good fun.
Yeah, I'll have to look at my calendar and see, but maybe I'll try. Um,
Awesome.
but I appreciate you being on here. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you.